Let's be completely honest about this. Why is it that everyone else always seems to have more money than you? It's like no matter what you're doing, everyone else just seems to be doing better than you are. They're driving nicer cars, going on more vacations, and eating at the best restaurants. Meanwhile, you're here trying to just get through the month without needing to dip into your savings yet again. It's really frustrating, especially on the times when you do start saving and manage to get slightly ahead. Then somehow you're always hit with some unexpected expenses that take more money out of your pocket and wipe out any progress you make, which might lead you to think, what am I doing wrong? And why does everyone else seem to have more money? This is actually a common feeling that most people have, so you're not alone here. In this video, we'll break down the 7 reasons why it feels like everyone else has more money than you, and at the end, we'll see if there's actually any truth to this. Let's start with the obvious one. What you see on the surface isn't always what's real. Superficial appearances are not an accurate representation of someone's life. This is a big misconception that a person's wealth is determined by the kind of car they drive or the type of house they live in. The guy you see in a flashy car might actually just be leasing it, where they're basically just renting it for an extended period. And likewise, the person that you see living in a luxury apartment might be behind on their rent, or maybe they might even have roommates that's splitting the cost with them. You just don't know. And unless we get to see everyone's actual bank statements, there's no real way of telling how someone's doing financially just by looking at these external things. It's really odd behavior, but people spend their hard-earned money to signal status, not necessarily because they're rich, but because they want to look like they are. And the reason they do this is most people are chasing instant validation from others. It's a sad fact, but a lot of people are living beyond their means just to keep up an appearance of wealth. Instagram is one of the most popular apps in the world with 48 million downloads. And for a lot of us, this is how we connect with our friends and follow public figures that we like. But the problem with social media is that most people only post the highlight reels, the good parts of their lives that they want you to see. So it's easy to get the impression that their lives are amazing because they're curating the post and only showing you the very best parts. I think we're all guilty of this. At least I know I am. Like, I only post the good stuff that I think would make me look good. Let's say if I'm at a nice restaurant, then of course I'd post a picture of it. But if I'm at home eating leftovers for the 3rd day in a row, then you're not gonna see me post that to my stories. I'm just being honest. So if you're basing your judgment based on what you see on social media, then you'd get a really skewed perception that everyone else seems to be doing better than you are. You just can't trust what you see online. What I've done is to take it a step further and unfollow accounts that make me feel like I'm behind in life. And this even applies to some of my friends who I've just muted so I don't have to see any of their posts. I try to curate my feed to only show me things that inspire me and make me feel positive. Having said all that, there are some instances where those people do actually have more money than you, and that's fine. Maybe they worked really hard and grew a successful business, or even maybe they had a head start and inherited wealth, or had help from their family. Maybe they started with no debt, or had connections that got them a high-paying job. But who cares? That's just life, and you just gotta play the cards you're dealt. I know it sucks, but resenting other people for their success only distracts you from achieving your own success. So instead of wasting your energy thinking about other people and what they have, you might as well focus on the things that you can control, like your skills, your habits, your network, your mindset. Focus on your own grind. The most successful people that I personally know aren't the ones who had the best start in life, but rather they're the ones who just kept showing up and kept grinding and improving over time. And on the note of comparing yourself with other people, we often don't see the trade-offs that they had to make to get to where they are, or the sacrifices that they might still be making now. You could have someone who could be making $200,000 a year, but have to work 80 hours a week and only get to see their family like twice a month. Or you could have an entrepreneur who's making 6 figures, but is constantly stressed, barely getting any sleep, and is anxious of losing everything. People sacrifice time, their health, relationships, all sorts of things just for money. But from the outside perspective, all you see is the nice fancy stuff that they bought, not the part where they're stressed to the edge or burnout trying to keep up with the payments. We just don't see these things, the late nights, the sacrifices. So if you ever feel envious about what someone else has, think about what they might have had to give up to achieve it. The next reason why it feels like everyone else has more money than you is simply that they might actually be living in debt. You see, debt lets people live a lifestyle that they can't actually afford, from cars to tech devices and even the odd regular Amazon package. People buy these things with money they don't actually have by using credit. So they're technically borrowing their money to fund their lifestyle. And so I think the biggest reason why it feels like everyone else has more money than you is simply because most people are using debt. Plus nowadays, with all of these buy now, pay later services like Klarna and Afterpay, you can split payments on almost anything. In fact, this is totally crazy, but recently they announced that you can even use buy now, pay later to order food with Uber Eats or DoorDash. How crazy is that? Like, my first thought was, dude, if you need to finance that pizza, Just go make a peanut butter sandwich at home or something. Can you imagine talking to someone and they go like, oh yeah, I'm still paying off that burrito I had from 3 weeks ago. I know times are hard, but man, this is getting ridiculous. Anyway, I was talking to a friend of mine, and in that conversation, he was talking about how he needed to pay his credit card bills. And I thought, oh okay, I mean, we all have credit card bills to pay. But then I realized he meant he had an outstanding balance that he was carrying over from month to month. And I was shocked to hear that, because to me, that's absolutely crazy. So I told him if I were in his shoes, I'd make it my absolute priority to pay it off as best as I can before even thinking about making any sort of investment, and to stop spending money that you don't have. According to the Federal Reserve, more than 60% of Americans carry credit card debt with an average balance of around $6,000. Many of these people are referred to as debt revolvers, where they only pay the minimum amount each month and let the debt keep rolling forward to the next month, and trapping them in this cycle as they continue spending money they don't have. It makes me feel so suffocated just thinking about it. But yeah, so many people out there are using debt to create this illusion of wealth, which means it's easy to look rich while actually being broke. Having said all that, it's only natural for us to still sometimes compare our lives with other people. But one thing you gotta pay attention to is that you can't only be comparing upwards. We often would compare ourselves to people ahead of us, people who are richer or more successful, but rarely do we ever compare downwards or even sideways. Like if you made $60,000 a year, you'll naturally compare yourself to someone who's making 100 grand a year. But you won't ever think about the fact that there might be people still living at home with no plan for their lives. Our brains are just wired to look upwards when it comes to this, to the people who have what we want. But in my opinion, the most important person you ought to really compare yourself with is just you, specifically you in the past, like a year ago or a couple of years ago. That's the only comparison that matters, so you'll be able to see the progress that you've made. When you look back and see things like your money habits, your skills, your savings, or your mindset has improved, then that's a win, and that's how you know you're on the right track. But if it's not, then maybe it's time to change some things and make some adjustments. The key here is that it's always just you versus you, and not you versus everyone else. At the end of the day, you might actually be doing better than you think, especially if you're living below your means, saving consistently, and maybe even investing a portion of your income. Even if it's a small amount, you're already ahead of most people. It just might not feel like it because what you're doing is invisible. Making the good financial choices isn't always sexy. You're not gonna look rich by saving and investing most of your income, but that's exactly the thing that's gonna help you become actually rich. I know a guy who worked a regular 9 to 5, didn't have a car, lived with his roommates into his 30s, just a simple, quiet life. But he was disciplined with his spending and invested consistently. So now 10 years in, he's gotten over $250,000 invested and zero debt. A lot of people thought he was broke, but he was just playing a smarter game. So as long as you're focused on spending towards your personal growth, education, and increasing your skills, you're on the right track. These things might not be as flashy or what you want to flaunt, but these are the things that would truly help you build your wealth. It really comes down to just delaying instant gratification. It's just not worth having a moment's joy or glory at the expense of your future and your freedom. Take some time to find your own values and think about what you want your life to be like. Because most of the times with these luxury items, we might not even want the thing, but we just want to be seen having the thing, just to gain approval and validation from other people. And at the end of the day, you really should just be focusing on yourself. Thinking about how much money other people have is a complete waste of your time and energy. The fact that you're watching a video like this is a positive sign that you're dedicated to getting your finances in order and growing your wealth. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, and please drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, check out this other video about how I made my first 6 figures when I was just 24. For now, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.